Thank you. Before I recognize Senator Murphy, I just have to say I wish we had the alarm bells sound when President Trump made a deal with the Taliban that told them with a date certain, we will leave by this date, that released thousands of Taliban prisoners to the Taliban that only augmented their fighting force, that ultimately dramatically reduced our troop presence before this administration took over, and that got none of the commitments from the Taliban cemented before all those actions were taken. That set the stage. I don't excuse anybody for execution of what they decided, but it set the stage. Senator Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Barrasso has left, but it takes a lot of guts to come down to this committee and lecture the administration about the conduct of foreign policy when right now Senate Republicans are using extraordinary powers on the Senate floor to deny this administration the personnel they need to conduct this policy. Senator Barrasso is talking about whether or not U.S. taxpayer dollars are going to be effectively administered in Afghanistan. I just came from the floor trying to get approval for two totally non-controversial USAID administrators whose job it is to oversee the expenditure of U.S. dollars in places in and around Afghanistan. And we were denied the ability to move two nominees that under any other administration would have gone by voice vote. The Assistant Secretary that oversees Afghanistan, blocked. The Assistant Secretary that oversees refugee policy, directly relevant to Afghanistan, blocked by Republicans. And so spare me the righteous indignation about whether or not this administration is conducting foreign policy according to your priorities when you are at the same time denying the personnel necessary to protect this nation. Never before has a minority party gone to this length to stop a president's diplomatic team from being put in place. President Trump, by this time, had nearly 20 ambassadors that were confirmed, 17 of them by voice vote. This president has 4 ambassadors in place. It's like criticizing your buddy for not fighting back after you just tied his hands behind his back. Mr. Secretary, I wanted to talk to you about the impact of not having ambassadors. We have great chargés out there. They're fantastic, they're capable, but they're not ambassadors. And in my travels around the world representing this committee and this Congress, there is a difference when you have an ambassador. There's a level of public diplomacy that an ambassador can engage in on behalf of the United States. There's frankly a level of meetings that can be secured in some countries only by an ambassador, very different than what a chargé can get. Can you just share with the committee what the impact is, the practical impact of not having ambassadors, and maybe further the practical impact of not having assistant secretaries in place to oversee our diplomacy?
Yeah, thank you, Senator Murphy. You've put your finger on a very important issue that concerns us. As you say, we have very talented officers serving as chargé d'affaires in dozens of countries around the world, but they were selected to be deputy chief of mission. They were not selected to be chiefs of mission. And usually in the progression in the Foreign Service, that's a job you hold before you get to be an ambassador. So people are doing what we would call a stretch assignment. Many of them are performing very well and leading their missions, but there are substantial costs. One you put your finger on, which is in some countries, the government at the highest level will not receive an American representative unless they are the ambassador. So we're not getting the meetings we need to have and having the influence that we want to have in that country. Secondly, the mission is, it's an interagency mission. There are people from across the government serving in our embassies. Having an accredited and confirmed ambassador leading that mission really makes a difference, having somebody who's empowered by the president and the secretary. And then in Washington with assistant secretaries, they drive the policy innovation. We can't all do it from the 7th floor. And having Senate confirmed people recommended by the secretary, chosen by the president, it makes a big difference. The acting people we had in place were terrific, but I think some of them after the last 4 years weren't used to being empowered, and not all of them always took the initiative. So having the folks that we have chosen in place has made a difference. I can see it already with some of the assistant secretaries who've come in the last few weeks.
Thank you for that answer. And Mr. Chairman, thank you for being so vigilant about trying to move forward the President's national security team. I also know that this is largely a crisis being created by one member of this committee, but it does seem to be spreading. I was just on the floor asking for these two USAID administrators, and it was not Senator Cruz objecting. It was, in this case, Senator Marshall. And so this remains a crisis that I hope this committee can get its head wrapped around. Lastly, just for the record, if I could send you some information on a bill that I'm introducing today with Senator Cornyn on promoting more subnational diplomacy, trying to help the department organize mayors and first selectmen and governors to be able to represent the United States abroad. I know this is something you care deeply about and believe in. My time has expired, but I'd love to continue to work with this committee and the administration on trying to buttress our official diplomatic corps with more Americans who want to represent the good things about America abroad.
I'll be happy to look at that and talk to you about it, Senator. This is of great interest to the Secretary.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.